it turned on? Can you hear me? Yeah? No. So it's probably not turned on, which is why we have no feedback. I think it might be locked. It's okay.
Not just the button.
I'll just use my minister voice.
It's on.
It is on. Hello. I am happy to see you. I was only off for a couple of weeks, but it feels like it was forever. Before we begin service today, which I realize I've just lost my bulletin somewhere, we're going to practice. We're going to sing the Holy, Holy, Holy for the communion liturgy. Oh, it's okay. I think I'm good. It's one of my notes in it, and I realized I put it in here. So, we haven't done this in a while, so I thought that we would try, we'll go over it once, just to be familiar. And it is in your Voices United hymn book.
We didn't hand that up. Just give me a minute,
Tell me your favorite memory of the summer. What's your favorite memory of the summer so far? Someone. I'm not joking. Give me your favorite memory.
We finally got my mom moved over to Vancouver.
Got your mom moved to Vancouver. Yeah. What else?
Picking blackberries.
Picking blackberries. Did you get scarred? I find they fight back sometimes. Yeah. 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 You go home and like, really? They fight back. What else? Favorite memory?
Making lemons out of lemonade was canceled because of the fires, and that's okay. Instead, I took one of my children to visit my nephew in Vancouver, who's got a new apartment downtown. Never would have done that if the family vacation hadn't been canceled.
Awesome. So you got to see, so who got to go? Was it you?
No,
No, Emily. Nice. What else? Favorite memory of the summer?
Swimming in the ocean.
Swimming in the ocean. Where did you go?
Just on the way.
Okay, awesome. Where else? What else?
Going on bike trips.
Bike trips. What else?
Visitors.
Visitors. I got to do yoga on the top of the Malahat Skywalk. I got stung and it was hard, but it was really cool to be up there in the sunshine. One more.
Paddling.
Paddling. Well, from that summer memories, we turn to our communion liturgy. So it's going to be number 941. Let's see this out. 941, Communion Setting D. And Reiki's going to play it through for us once, and then we'll try singing it. And then by the time it comes around to the communion liturgy, we'll be pros. mark your books.
If your book has it.
If you're not,
Not all
does
books
it
have
have it?
The
No.
little ones don't. Just to throw it right off.
At what point do I actually look organized?
Screw that right answer.
All right, my friends. If your feet reach the ground, I invite you to put them on the ground. And even if they don't, just settle right back into your chair. And take a breath. And delight in God's sense of humor and the ability to laugh. And I invite you to take your hands and face them towards the ground. Feel the energy from your hands going into God's good and holy earth and returning from God's earth to you. And then I invite you to take your hands and hold them up in this gesture, which in this part of the country is often accompanied by the word Rachka, which means thank you. It's a lot of things, but one of them is thank you. And so we say Haichka, we say thank you that we get to be in this place, on a land that has been lived on and cared for and fought over and worshipped on and just had life for generations. From time immemorial, this is where the Cowichan and the Malahat peoples meet. And we say thank you that we get to take our place in this part of the land story. And then you can do a little blessing, you can do a little picture frame, you can send a little love. God's beloved community. Thank you for showing up. And then give yourself a hug. God's beloved creature. Thank you for being here today. I have a new candle lighter. Do you remember the words? I said the words in the light. So you should push this. Push it with one at the same time. Okay. That's what you do. Push it. It is hard. This is childproof. Okay, how about I push it? I'm going to get another lighter and see if it is working. Maybe push your thumb and I'll click. What's that? There was once someone who said such amazing things and did such wonderful things. The people began to ask, who is he? And one day, when the people asked, who is he? Jesus said, I am the light of the world. And so we light this candle to remind ourselves that we gather in the name of Jesus, who is the light of the world, and calls us to be lights to the world. Please join me in the opening prayer that is printed in our bulletins. Beloved one, interrupt us in unexpected encounters, in the midst of our preoccupations, in the middle of all the loss and shows of our lives. interrupt us that we might meet you. Interrupt us that we might be you when the world needs to be interrupted. Amen. All right, let's take our paperback, our voices, and we're going to sing number 1.
Good morning. Our lessons this morning are first from Exodus number 3,
verses 1 to 15. Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led his flock beyond the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of a bush. He looked, and the bush was blazing, yet it was not consumed. Then Moses said, I must turn aside and look at this great sight, and see why the bush is not burned up. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Come no closer. Remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. He said further, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their cry on account of their taskmasters. Indeed, I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them from the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, in the country of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hittites, and the Jebusites. The cry of the Israelites has now come to me. I have also seen how the Egyptians oppress them. So come, I will send you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? He said, I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you, that it is I who sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God in this mountain. But Moses said to God, If I come to the Israelites and say to them, The God of your ancestors has sent me to you, and they ask me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. He said further, Thus you shall say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, Thus you shall say to the Israelites, The Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, and God of Isaac, and God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is my title for all generations. Second reading is from Matthew 16, verses 21 to 28. And Jesus foretells his death and resurrection. From that time on, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, God forbid it, Lord, this must never happen to you. But he turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things. Then Jesus told his disciples, If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world but forfeit their life? Or what will they give in return for their life? For the Son of Man is to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay everyone for what has been done. Truly I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste death before they see the Son of God coming in his kingdom. Sends the reading of God's word.
Our next hymn is a new one to me, so Rick, I wonder if you can play it through for us once so we can hear it. fact of sitting closest to the camera is my camera person now.
I see nothing through it, but I pressed the button.
Okay, beautiful. It's because the screen is facing me. So we are in one of my favorite of all things to talk about, a liminal time. A liminal definition is occupying a position at or on both sides of a boundary or a threshold. It comes from the Latin word limen, which just means threshold. It's where we get the word lintel, which is that horizontal support across the top of a door or window. So we're in a threshold time, an in-between time, an already but not yet time. It's Labor Day weekend, which, despite what the calendar says, marks both the end of summer and the beginning of autumn. This is the last few days of freedom before school begins. We see a few splashes of red amongst the green of the deciduous trees. Here on our rainforest island, the crispy brown lawns are starting to go green again after that first taste of the rainy season, after a hot, dry summer. And in the church, we're beginning the series of readings about the great narrative of the Exodus. The Hebrew people fleeing slavery in Egypt and entering their 40 years of wandering and nation forming on their way to the Promised Land. It's the grand liminal time, a transition from an enslaved people in a foreign land who before that were grouped together in family clans to becoming their own nation in the Promised Land. 40 years of not being slaves anymore, but not home and in their own country yet. And today we have the call of Moses to lead them through it. Moses, having been given up by his mother because of Pharaoh's order that all Hebrew children be killed at birth, and then found by Pharaoh's daughter. Moses, who was raised in luxury in Pharaoh's palace, but seeing brutality and injustice rained down on his people by his adopted father's people. Moses, who loses his temper and kills a guard who is beating a slave and then has to flee into the wilderness. Well, now he's herding sheep in what the King James Version of the Bible calls the backside of the desert. The Prince of Egypt, to taking care of his father-in-law's sheep in the backside of the desert, where he sees a bush on fire. So it's a really familiar story, but I confess the idea of a bush on fire, it actually makes me feel a little panicky. Yeah? Fires are really real and present danger right now. We've even talked about, should we be packing a go bag and what would go in it in case fire begins on our dried out island? But this fire, it's not a wildfire. In the backside of the desert, this fire is burning, but it doesn't spread, it's contained. The bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. And so when Moses stops to check this out, God calls him by name, and then tells him to remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. And I love this. I love this idea of holy ground as a place where you should take off your shoes and feel it with your feet. Wiggle your toes into it. Connect with the ticklish, the sensitive soles of your feet. A place where things are maybe slower or out of sync with routines and expectations. I've always associated the idea of holy ground not as some sanctified place where only the good and the righteous and the lucky are allowed to enter, but those thin places. Those places where the veil between heaven and earth is a little thinner and you can feel, what? Something big? Something comforting? Something inspiring or welcoming? Something more. a liminal space. Not quite heaven, but more than just ordinary life. Something that you can't explain or quantify or rationalize. So I love this idea of a liminal time, a threshold time. But as I read and reflected and prayed on the readings this week, preparing for the sermon, that lovely romantic idea of the thin place, the holy ground, the liminal time, while comforting, it isn't what stood out for me most. I wanted to write a sermon about how Sylvan is on a thin place and sacred and holy ground, places like the labyrinth and the memorial garden, and how we should be more welcoming of people to our lovely liminal place. But instead I kept coming back to the understanding that this call to Moses, this burning bush that didn't spread like wildfire, that called his name and then beckoned him to come closer, asking him to remove his shoes because it was holy ground, that this happened on the backside of the desert, and that it was only the beginning of the liminal time. We expect holy ground to be in majestic areas, or grand cathedrals, or even the well-known places that people travel to, like Lourdes and Taizé in France, or Iona in Scotland, or Uluru or Ayers Rock in Australia, Mecca for the Muslims in Saudi Arabia, Jerusalem for Jews and Christians. And these are places that thousands flock to. And yes, it's not easy to get to some of them, but thousands figure it out. This holy ground is well known. But I'm struck by Moses being all alone with just some sheep on the run from his adopted grandfather's guards, estranged from his own heritage and culture on the backside of the desert. He's not making a pilgrimage to a holy place. He's just kind of curious about this bush. God doesn't send an angel to confront Moses with a message like he does for Mary, or show up at Moses' doorstep in disguise like for Abraham and Sarah. The bush isn't on fire in the middle of his path, and it doesn't order him to get over here. It's just there. It's just burning. And when Moses notices it, it calls his name and then waits for a reply. So it stuck with me. I often joke about how life and faith and ministry, it would be so much easier if God would just show up as a burning bush once in a while with some very specific plans and instructions. But I wonder if there are invitations to notice God's call in unexpected places that I haven't noticed. Peculiar moments or odd encounters. Calling my name, but I'm too preoccupied with plans or routines or ideas or habits or expectations of my own to hear it. So that was the first thing that stood out for me. The second was the understanding that liminal times, transition times, this time between what was and what will be, well, it's not short. This call to Moses sent him to Pharaoh to demand freedom for the Hebrews, which it took a few plagues and a race across the Red Sea with Pharaoh's chariots and a hot pursuit. But the real liminal time, the transition from enslaved people grouped in family clans to a people with their own country and a king like other nations, that took 40 years. 40 years, over a generation between what was and what will be. And it wasn't easy. So while I delight in this transition time from lazy summer to crisp and busy and cozy fall, the real liminal time we are in as a faith, as a church, as a denomination, we're only really at the beginning of that journey. The United Church of Canada has launched this ambitious strategic plan of deep spirituality and bold discipleship and daring justice. And that's exciting, but we really don't know how that's going to play out. The society around us is so different from when we first formed as a denomination 98 years ago. We can't be the same church we were then. But we don't really know what we're going to be in the future either. We don't even really know how to be anything other than what we've always been, which could be scary, but could also be really exciting. It's a freedom in a way. It's a chance to think and wonder and pray about what really matters to us in a life of faith. What are the things, what are the practices, what are the gatherings that really matter? Really attune us to our connection to God and to each other and to the planet and to our souls. And are we putting enough time and attention on these things? What needs to be pruned? What needs to be left behind in the desert? Are we traveling light with just the necessities, or are we dragging along extra baggage of just in case we need it? Or this might come in handy, or my personal favorite, we've always done it this way. In October, our council, Sylvan Council, is planning a retreat day to dream and discern and plan our priorities and ways of being, and to bring this to a congregational meeting for us all to wrestle and engage with. And if we realize that we're in a transition time, a liminal time of being a congregation and a denomination, this can be really freeing because we don't have to figure it all out. We just need to do the next right thing. The important part of the liminal story of the Exodus is that God traveled with them every step of the way. Even when they were being obstinate and whiny and just plain hard to get along with, God was there in the most unexpected of times and places. God is there. So the call is to pay attention, because there might be something in this transition time, even if it feels like we're in the backside of the desert, that's calling our name and inviting us to take off our shoes and realize that this too has always been holy ground. Thanks be to God. We're going to sing number 135, Called by Earth and Sky. And as we do that, we're going to pass around the offering plates. So let's stay seated, please.
Sanctify
try this again. Very good. My friends, in these plates, we have money. We have cards for people who, people who are giving on par. We also have our hopes and our dreams and our faith and our commitment to be God's people in this time, in this place, whatever that looks like. And so we ask for God's blessing on all of our offerings. Sing our offering hymn. We're about to celebrate Sacrament of Communion, and one of the important parts of this is the passing of the peace, because we are called to make peace with our God, with ourselves, and with our neighbors before we come to Christ's table. So I'm going to invite you to turn to your neighbor and share the peace of Christ, being aware we all have different comfort levels. So you can share the peace of Christ, you can have a big smile. If everybody is comfortable, you can shake hands or give a hug, but let's just share the peace gently and from a distance. So my friends, peace be with you.
I'll give you those. It's a whole new consent culture, isn't it? All right, so the liturgy is included in your vote.
For those who lead, the bread waits. For those who long, the wine lingers. For those seeking transformation, the table beckons. All are invited, not because we have faith, but because we trust. Not because we understand, but because we long. Not because we know, but because we are loved. Not because we are well, but because we know we need.
The table waits and heaven's host calls. Our place is not there, but here. Come now to the table. Peace be with you.
And also with you.
Lift up your hearts.
We lift them up to God.
Let us give thanks to God.
It is right to give God thanks and praise.
Great provider of life, we meet you in the small things of life. The kind smile of a stranger, the gentleness of the breeze, yeast that rises in bread, water to cleanse us. The satisfaction of a meal made remarkable by spices. In these small things, your great love is known.
A small seed of faith has enabled your people to do great things throughout history, empowering us to live in times of exile, to move mountains and transform a hurting world, one smile, one gesture, one moment at a time.
Into our ordinary world you came to dwell, and in the small things Jesus Christ lived righteously, healing, teaching, preaching, gathering a community to live together, challenging injustice through acceptance and affirmation.
Your Spirit has blown across our globe, transforming our world, that your love may be shown in word, deed, and intent, so that no one will be in need, and all humanity may be united as your children.
We gather at this table, set with ordinary things, common bread, common cup, candles, and cloth, symbols of our ordinary lives, to celebrate the extraordinary covenant you have given us that makes us your people.
People with many different skin colors, many different languages, many different lifestyles, many different life experiences, many different abilities and limitations, many different ways to respond to your love in our lives.
While this bread and this cup may be small because they are familiar, they are also exceptional because of your love. Guide us, we pray, so that the ways we live our everyday lives and all the small things we do and say may be transformed to be exceptional ways that your love and grace may be known in all the places of the world. And so we join with all creation in singing number 941.
Come to our time, O grace. Come and touch with the hand of heaven. Come to our world, O peace. Come and embrace with the breath of heaven. Come to our place, O life. Come and bless with the taste of heaven. Come to our souls, O light. Come and enfold with the mystery of heaven. Come to our living, O Word. Come and engage with the voice of heaven. We remember how Jesus gathered with his friends. He took the bread, gave thanks, broke it, and shared it. This bread, remember the life given for us. Jesus Christ, the power of love. From ordinary to holy, remember.
We remember how Jesus raised the cup, gave thanks for it, and shared it. this cup. Remember the tears and suffering poured out for us. Jesus Christ, the transforming courage of justice, from ordinary to holy. Remember. These are the gifts of God, and they are for the people of God. Thanks be to God. This is Christ's table, and everyone for whom this means something is just welcome here. We have grape juice. We'll have it in the cups. Very carefully take the lid off now. We have bread, which Jane will hold, and we have rice crackers for those who like a gluten-free option. You are welcome to come forward as you're ready. You can take the cup when you finish drinking it. There's baskets here and on this side that you can place them in. And just be welcome. Come, for the feast is prepared.